Before we begin, my name is Pete Mushinski. I'm the principal here at Harvey Clark. On this call, we have Mr. Jake Tucker, who is our Dean of Students. We have our kindergarten team, and I'll introduce them in a minute. We have Sarita Mahashi, who is our school counselor.
Hello, everyone.
And we have, not on this call, but they're very friendly faces in the office, Mrs. Jones and Mrs. Godinez. They are both our secretaries, and they're here to assist to meet your needs. So first off, I want to introduce our kindergarten team. We have Amy Burke.
Hello.
We have Della Emmerich.
Hi.
We have Emily Thursam.
Hi.
And we have Janina Tabor.
Hello, nice to meet you.
And as the principal, you couldn't ask for a better kindergarten team. They work well together. They have lots of great energy. They love kindergartners, and it's just a great place for kids to get started with their school career. We will have some time at the end of this for some questions. We want to make sure we get your questions answered before we move forward. All righty, next slide, please. Okay, you're probably all wondering, what is the school year 2021-2022 going to look like? We don't know yet. We don't have any definitive answers on whether we will be back fully in person or we will be in hybrid. We are very hopeful that we can attend in person and we can attend in full days. Excuse me, if you've had children in the system this year, you know how challenging distance learning has been, but I have to say transitioning to hybrid has been phenomenal, having kids in the building. It's what we do best. So we're hopeful. Please continue to check the district website and our school website. We will have updates on there as soon as we get them in terms of what next year will look like. Okay, Mr. Tucker. Okay, registration. So parents, it's real important that we get your child's registration forms into the office as soon as possible. You can request these forms through our school website, and the office will send those out to you. So Mr. Tucker is going to transition over to our website here for a second so I can show you exactly where to go. So if you get onto the main page of our website, you'll notice over there in the left-hand corner is a button that says Kindergarten Information. If you click on that, then go over to the parent button, click New Kindergarten. Here we have a whole page full of kindergarten information. So the kindergarten request form, we ask you to access that link, and then that will send a message to Mrs. Jones, our secretary. She will mail documents to you to get filled out. You can bring those back. You can hand deliver those to the window. You can mail them in, whatever works best for you. We will also have these slides and this presentation, the recorded version of this, posted here as well. So again, if you have friends and neighbors who have kindergartners who live inside the Harvey Clark attendance boundaries, please refer them to the website. On the very bottom there, you'll find a virtual school tour. One thing we like to do in Kindergarten Roundup is give our families a chance to walk around the school. If you're new to us, you can get a feel for what it looks like, what our classrooms look like, and your students will get a chance to see what their school is going to look like. So please access that link. It will give you an inside view of what Harvey Clark looks like if you haven't had the opportunity to be inside the building. Okay, so again, once you access these forms, we ask that you fill them out and return them either in person or in mail. It's real important that we get a copy of your birth certificate, your child's birth certificate, their immunization record, and your proof of address. So we will need a utility bill, a mortgage or a rental statement, something that ties you to that particular property. If you don't have a copy machine at your disposal, bring your birth certificate to the office and Mrs. Jones or Ms. Godinez will happily make a copy of that for you and return the original to you. Same goes with your shot record. Okay, just a few general reminders. So for kindergarten enrollment, children must be 5 years old by September 1st. They must be able to independently use the bathroom. Families must live within the Harvey Clark attendance boundaries. And busing is provided families outside of the 1.0 miles of the school. If you're not 100% sure that your address falls within our boundaries, please give our office a call, and Mrs. Jones or Mrs. Godinez can verify your address for you. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to our kindergarten team, and they are going to share information about academics and what kindergarten looks like. Is Mrs. Burke, is it your turn?
Want me to start? Or
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm finishing up with how to build on this after I think Mrs. Tabor is going to do literacy goals first.
Okay, so these are the goals for the end of kindergarten. So when we do grading and stuff, it's based on the end of the year goals, and just we're checking progress towards those goals. So we would like them to know all 26 letter names, uppercase and lowercase, as well as the sounds. We do ECRI and our literacy every day, so that's where we work on those. We want them to be able to take apart sounds in words. So if I said cat, they could say cat, and they would understand that there's 3 sounds in that word. And then in the reverse, to blend the sounds, if I said, what are the sounds in, or cat, they could say at, or what are the, if I say at, they could blend those together to say cat. To read and write a variety of words, which mostly is CVC words, which is consonant, vowel, consonant, like dog, cat, big, all of those CVC words. Spell non-sight words as they sound. So I know this is hard for everyone, but we use phonetic spelling in kindergarten because if they had to spell it correctly, they would never get any writing done. So we just have them sound out the sound. So if we said please, we'd say, what's the first sound? And please, they'd say P. So we put a P. What's the next sound? Oh. So we just go by the words. We don't teach them yet. We say O says off. We don't say O says O. So if you see spelling that looks like this, that's why, because they're just using the sounds to represent the words. And then there are 40 sight words that we teach. Those are the words that are hard to sound out, so they just have to memorize them. So we teach those incrementally, like 3 words every 2 weeks or whatever it is, so they build up on those words. We want them to be able to write simple sentences with capital letters only at the beginning of the sentence, and proper nouns like the name or I, and the rest lowercase. This is a big challenge. It can be a challenge for kindergartners. And we like to have a space between words. So like I do a finger space. They put their finger down before they move on so that they're not all jammed into one little thing and nobody can read it. And then we always want a punctuation at the end of each sentence. Okay, and then we also work on retelling a story, including specific characters, settings, and plot and order. So for example, like Goldilocks and the Three Little Bears, we review the story, we go over it, we do activities, and then we say, like, do you remember the characters' names? What happened first? What happened next? What happened last? And so we want them to be able to retell us the story. And then we also compare and contrast characters of like 2 different stories or 2 different books, how they're like, how they're different, how the plots are the same or different. And those are the main of those literacy goals for the year, including stories.
And before we go on, since that's such a huge amount of stuff, I wanted to talk with you guys real quickly about what we can do to help our kindergartners get ready to do all of these things. They're only 5 and 6 years old, and they are doing one of the hardest tasks that they will ever learn to do, and that is learning to read. All of this time, we've been teaching them that when I see an animal that says meow with 4 legs and a long tail, that's a cat, and it doesn't matter if it's black or white, and sometimes it might have a short tail or a long tail, but it's a cat. Now we're going to tell them that if I see a lowercase letter B and it's turned this way, it's a B, but if I turn it upside down, it's not a B anymore, it's a P, and if I turn it backwards, it's a D, and if I turn it upside down and backwards, it's a Q. If it's totally on its side, it's not even a letter anymore. Plus, we've got some letters that look like other letters or that look like numbers, like a lowercase L. If it's by itself, we teach them that's a capital I, and it's a 1 if it's a number and we're counting. So we're going to teach them something really difficult at only 5 or 6 years of age. Kids are born wired to learn to talk. They start babbling and imitating your speech. But the reading and writing is kind of an add-on skill. And actually, by the time kids are in about 3rd grade, they start to lose some of the neural pathways, the roads that they need to be able to hear sounds and words. And being able to hear sounds and words, we call it phonological awareness, is really important for being able to connect oral language, the language that kids are naturally born able to do, with reading and writing. And that's what we're going to be teaching them. So I wanted to offer a few activities that you guys can do with your kids over the summer to help them be really ready for kindergarten. One of those is being just aware of sounds and words. Rhyming books are really, really helpful with that, and doing rhyming and word games with your kids is helpful. For example, if you go into the store and you tell your kids, I'm looking for something that rhymes with Schnapple, but I can't quite remember what it is. And their kid might say banana because they're looking at the bananas. And you have to give them a few more clues. And you say, well, it's red and shiny. And they look around, they say cherries at first because they don't quite have the rhyming thing down. And you give them a few more, and it's over here, and you kind of point them to it. And eventually they start to be able to build those sounds. And pretty soon they will rhyme Schnapple with apple, and they'll rhyme mapes with grapes and things like that. And they'll start asking you for things like that, perhaps. You can also have them practice listening for initial sounds in words. So that's the very first sound in the word. So again, if you're out shopping, I'm looking for something that starts with a b, 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 and have your kid start looking for the banana, or if you're in the toy section, the boat, and things that begin with B. You can also do I Spy games like that when you're traveling in the car. Building memory is super important. Mrs. Tabor was talking about how kids need to be able to blend sounds to read words. At first, we find 5 and 6-year-olds have a really tough time being able to hold a bunch of sounds in their memory. So they might sound out k, a, t. But by the time they get to the end of the word, they've completely lost the k sound from the beginning. So they'll read it as at, or they'll read it as tat, because they'll have the ending sound. So building their memory is super helpful. You can play memory games, like with the little cards that you set out and you flip them upside down and then try to make matches. You can mimic motions and have start with maybe a clap, and your kid claps, and then you do a clap and a tap and see if they can match it, and add on motions to be able to build their memory. And that's actually going to help them be readers eventually. And then finally, also reading together with your child is super, super important. It builds background and concepts of things that they may not yet know much about. It builds vocabulary, because the words in picture books are much different, or you have some different options of things that you might normally say. So like, if you're saying said in a book, you might find it as announced or yelled, or different words like that. And then also it helps build comprehension. Kids learn to predict what might be happening next. They make connections with their own life in the story, and they can talk about motivations of characters. Why do you think they said that? Or why do you think they did that? And then finally, of course, it's a really good snuggle and bonding time. So it's great for your children's emotional health to be reading with you and snuggling with you and enjoying stories. And I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Tabor, or Mrs. Thurston rather, to talk about math.
Hi all, thanks all for being here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about math now. In kindergarten, these again are the end of the year goals that we work towards. So we're hoping that your child can count to 100 by ones, starting at any given number within the number sequence. So can they start at 52 and count up? Can they start at 14 and count up? Also counting by 100 to 10 by tens. We read and write numbers 0 through 20, and we would like them to be able to recognize these numbers written. If I were to show a set of objects like 10 Legos or 5 dolls, they'll be able to see how many objects I have and then recognize and write the number up to objects of 20. We also are hoping that they can add and subtract within 10. So if I can show your child, let's say a cube train of 6 red cubes and 4 yellow cubes, are they able to recognize one is 6 and one is 4, and then are they able to tell me the total number? You can go forward, Jake. On top of that, we would like them to be able to solve addition and subtraction with pictures. So not just manipulatives, but with pictures and numbers. Of course, number sentences, 2 plus 2 equals 4, 5 plus 5 equals 10, 3 minus 1 equals, and so on and so forth. And then the last chapters we cover is on shapes. So 2D and 3D shapes. Now I'm gonna share some things that you can do for math, and you'll probably recognize we love to eat, we love to shop. When you're at the grocery store, you can ask your child to identify the cost of items. Is this more? Is this less? Count the things in your cart. Okay, I'm buying grapes. That would be, crazy to count all the grapes in the bag, but I'm buying apples. How many apples are we buying? Do we have more grapes than apples? When they're baking or cooking at home with you, have them help measure, have them add handfuls of things, and recognizing the counting sequence is really important. So going to the park, how many swings are there? Okay, there's 2 swings that are available and 3 swings that are taken up. So how many are left? Little things like that they can start inquiring about the world in a mathematical sense. And I'm gonna send it off to Mrs. Emmerich. Thanks, you guys.
Hi. So, it really is true. Everything you need to know to be a good human, you've learned in kindergarten. Or you didn't learn in kindergarten and you're still learning. We believe that everyone, if you're alive, is growing your brain. We grow our brain. And I love that brain research is now telling us that really, truly brain growing work uses more energy than if I were to run a marathon, which is great because during COVID, I grew my brain and I did not run a marathon. So in kindergarten, we use 2 magic words. And if you would like to introduce these magic words to your children now, that would be glorious. They are not yet. Not yet. Not no. Not I can't do this. It's too hard. Not yet. Not yet leaves open the possibility for really everything. The things that you see here, building friendships, learning how to understand your own emotions. I mean, come on, did we all not learn how to do this during our quarantine? I mean, all these fabulous skills that us grown-ups didn't even realize we were going to need to know, because who knew there'd be a pandemic? And yet, here we are. So teaching the children to hold emotions, that are conflicting. I love my grown-ups. I have never left my grown-ups. I am so excited about this independence, right? Equally held emotions. We're a community. I mean, truly, I have to tell you, before all of you came on, there was like a hallway of woohoo. Mr. Mashinsky was like, wow, you guys. And we said, well, don't you want happy? I mean, this is a learning community that your children are going to be a part of. Things you can help them remember is grown-ups, you've done kindergarten. So the best thing you can do is to continue to build independence. I am a parent of 3. There are days when it would just be easier for me to do it myself. right? I get that. No judgment, no judgment. But having your child try and fail is a beautiful thing, right? Because we all fail. You should have seen the first Zoom I ever did. I digress. But really, truly encouraging that independence, because while we adore you all, even if COVID is gone away and we're back to whatever normal is, you're all not going to be in the room with your child all day long, and they are going to need to build this independence. So why don't you try learning that it's not yet? Kindergarten is amazing. I'm going to leave you with this. We as a team cannot guarantee what kind of day your child will have when they come to us at Harvey Clark. But we can guarantee that they are going to come to a team that love children. We adore each other. We are happy. We want to see your children, and that's a gift. And we want to say thank you for sharing your children with us. We look forward to it. Truly, Harvey Clark Kindergarten, it's where it's at.
All right, thank you, kindergarten team. And parents, I really hope you sense the energy, the great energy that comes from this group of professionals, because they really do pour their heart and their soul into their work. And we are excited at the opportunity to hopefully have students in person like a normal year next year. But again, we don't know, that is still up in the air. One last thing I wanted to mention before we open it up for questions is if your child is receiving early intervention or services from Head Start, Mrs. Kellis, Rochelle Kellis, who is our special ed facilitator, will be working with you to set appointments, intake appointments, to get support set up for your child here at Harvey Clark. So if you have not heard from her yet, give a call to the office and we can certainly pass a message on to her. So at this point, I'd just like to open it up if anybody has any questions. Parents, if you have a question, you'd like to put it into the chat, I can certainly read it and then share it with the other participants here on this Zoom call.
Or if anyone wants to sing, we always love songs. So if anyone like to just volunteer to dance or sing, we're down with it.
I was about to say dance party, anyone? I can see our students in here, so I'm just elated.
All right, Pete, we have a couple questions. I'll read them and then I'll let you go at it. The first one is, will the before and after school care be available next year? We have champions on site right now, and they are providing before and after school care. To my knowledge, we are working on getting that set up next year, so there will be a provider here. I don't know whether it's going to be champions or whether Little Monkeys will be returning to Harvey Clark. Awesome. The next question is, how soon will registration packets be sent out?
Mrs. Jones will begin sending those out tomorrow. We wanted to hold off until we had this opportunity to share information with parents, and then if you requested a package, she will get those going in the mail tomorrow.
All right, next question is, will kindergartners practice in the 1 week practice week held in previous years?
So we are very hopeful. If you're familiar with this, we called it Jumpstart 2 years ago, and it was a fabulous program because we had kindergartners come to school a week before everyone else. We had the whole schools to ourselves. We got to take them around. They got to experience what it was like being in a classroom, eating lunch, going to recess. We're working on funding right now, and my hope is that we will have that in place and ready to go. That's why it's real important that we have your registration information on file, because that's how we will communicate if there is a Jumpstart program, is through the mail and through the email.
Awesome. All right, the next question was, does Champions have different hours from Little Monkeys? And will registration for that be a part of the packet that is sent out?
That is not, so the childcare is not part of, it's not a school sponsored program. So these are contractors that come in and use our space. So, but Mrs. Jones, our secretary, or Miss Godinez can certainly get you the information. I don't know who it's going to be at this point, and typically for fall daycare, we don't know, childcare, we don't know that until mid-August. But we can certainly send information out at that point.
All right. The next question is there information available that outlines what kindergarten may look like if it is not in person?
Boy, I'm going to defer this to one of my teachers. We don't have a document that really outlines what it will look like if it's not in person. But what we did this year was, I don't know if one of my kinder teachers, if you wouldn't mind just describing what your virtual schedule looked like for our families on the call. Anybody brave enough for that?
Yes, I'm brave. I'll be
right on, Miss Thurston.
No, just kidding. Basically, this year we spent a lot of time on Zoom. It was we went back to half-day kindergarten, so they spent live time with their teacher in the morning, and then in the afternoon they had either specials, PE, music, counseling, or library, and then a job that they would do independently. So again, we're not really sure what next year will look like. I don't know if anybody wants to add to that. It was only a couple of hours, so according to ODE, Oregon Department of Education, children could not spend more than 2 hours online live. So our instruction was up to 2 hours, and then after that they were released to do an independent job.
And the good news is we all learned all of the things. So you will get the benefit of that, because you won't get all the Zoom mistakes and all those things that we've ironed out this year. So got that going for us.
We grew our brains a lot in technology.
But my hope is, that we will not start in a comprehensive distance learning model. But what each teacher did this year is we had a Canvas page, and that was their homepage. It was their virtual classroom. And within that virtual classroom, there was their daily schedule. So you could see, from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, for example, children would be doing literacy instruction. Maybe 11 to 12, they would be doing math instruction. So if we end up in that same predicament next year, we will follow that same protocol of using Canvas and providing a schedule. If classes are in person, what does that look like Monday to Friday? We are hopeful that we can go all day next year. Right now, we have brought our kindergartners back in a hybrid model. So we have them here from 9 o'clock to noon. And it's just great having them in the classroom. You see the teachers just dancing and smiling. Kindergartners are not built for online instruction. I'll just be honest with you. It's not the best for them. So we are hopeful that the metrics will stay in our favor, and we can have our youngest, most vulnerable kids back in the building where they belong next year. And we can
Can I just add to the question about what it looked like? Kindergartners received devices, so they had their own, because if you're wondering on what device did they Zoom, the school district, we recently even got touchscreens like 3 weeks ago at the end of our distance learning, but nevertheless, so you'll have your own the child has their own touchscreen device. They do Zoom. You would be amazed at how flexible the kinders were. It was us grown-ups that had such a hard time. But hopefully not again.
I'm going to piggyback on that too. And it truly was not ideal, but it was absolutely amazing how much they still learned. The kids are learning to read. They work together. They learn how to take turns. So it was really amazing how much they did still learn, even in an online format. We definitely prefer to have them back in person, but they were making progress. It was pretty cool.
And Kinder team, do one of you want to speak to how this transition has gone, having kids back in the classroom?
It's fabulous.
It's amazing.
It's fabulous. However, there is a lot of energy.
Woo!
So it's fabulous. The children coming back. I mean, this pandemic, it's awful. And if you have lost a loved one, please, I send you lots of, love. Like Mrs. Burke was saying, the kids learned. I mean, we did it on Zoom. It really was us. We had the harder time imagining it, but the kinders really, they've learned how to read. The kids are good. And then bringing them in has just been, they're like, oh, that's what you look like. I didn't realize you were taller than me. Or, it's been fabulous. And the whole keeping your distance, it's a hoot listening to them. It really has been, if you're a teacher, you want kids, right? So it's been amazing.
And I thought like the wearing the masks and all that stuff would be like really challenging, but they're doing really well. Like they keep their masks on, they stay in their squares. We have dance parties and they stay in their area. And I think they're just so happy to be here and be with each other that they're doing great.
So I want to, there's two questions in the chat just about schedule kind of related to childcare. If we are in person, our normal schedule is 9 a.m. to 3:15. That's our school hours. If we are on some kind of a modified schedule, like for example, right now our hybrid schedule, our students come 9 to noon, Monday and 2 days a week. We have just started having groups of kindergartners come 4 days a week because our class sizes are small enough. But we are very hopeful that next year we'll be able to run a full day schedule, which would be 9 to 3:15. If you do access childcare here on site, typically how that works is if you have to go to work before school starts, in previous years, and I think Champions is here as early as 7 a.m. So children can get dropped off as early as 7 a.m. and they are here till 5 or 5:30 in the afternoon. So typically how it works is students would go in the morning if they need childcare, then they would transition up to their classroom, go to school for the day, and transition back to the childcare after the school day is over.
Right. Pete, we do have another question in the chat. How do you decide what classroom students will be in? Do you take into account maybe putting them in classes with students that they know, maybe students coming from similar preschools, etc.?
Great question. So when you get your registration packet, in there you will find a parent input form. And this is really vital information for us when it comes to placements, because if your child has had a preschool experience, we would want to know about that. If they have friends, not that we can make promises that we can connect friends in classrooms, but that information is vital in terms of how do we build balanced classes, and how this works typically is when we get registration forms in, we sit down with the kindergarten team and we try to find. We look for familiar names. So if, for example, if your family has a Mrs. Burke in the past, you may want your child to go back in with Mrs. Burke and whatnot. So we try to build those balanced class sizes from there. And we like to know the learning style, personality traits of your child, likes, dislikes, so that the teacher knows as much about them coming in. Class sizes in a normal year typically run between 22 and 25 students per kindergarten class. All right, any other questions out there? Okay. Kinder team, any final thoughts before we end our meeting?
We are super excited to see your kids next year.
Yeah, we can't wait.
So Pete, we do have another question in the chat. It says, are you anticipating larger kinder classes this fall due to the pandemic and maybe parents not sending their kids last year?
I am anticipating larger kinder classes this year, and you know, I have a staffing plan that I can't share at this point on how we can accommodate that and make sure that we keep those class sizes at a reasonable level, because you know, more than 24 kindergartners in a classroom is it's just not a good thing. So we like to keep them as small as we possibly can. So, but to be honest with you, I am anticipating, you know, more than normal, because several parents did choose to keep their children out of school and maybe opt for another year of preschool just because of the pandemic and distance learning and things like that. All right. Well, Harvey Clark families, thank you for joining us tonight. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call the office, and we will make sure we can get the answers that you need to your questions. And we hope for a really good transition. Please keep your fingers crossed so that we can all come back to school in person next year in full days, because that's really where the good work gets done. So I have one more question here.
So the question is, the students who did not attend this year that should have been in kindergarten, will they be placed in kindergarten or will they be placed in first grade?
So this is a discussion we're having at the district level. You know, if we have a child that comes in that is really the age of a first grade child, but did not attend kindergarten, we're talking about a skills assessment to see, you know, what would that possibly look like, you know, if they transition to first grade, and what kind of skill gaps would we need to fill. But definitely, you know, if they have not had a preschool experience and they need kindergarten, in all likelihood, we would place them in kindergarten. Absolutely. Kindergarten sets the tone for, you know, success moving on. So I don't like to cheat students out of that at all. Great question. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for your time and for joining us this evening. Kindergarten team, Mr. Tucker, Ms. Mahashi, and Claudia, thank you for being here. And we look forward to seeing you all in the very near future. So take care and stay safe and healthy.